What's up, people? Orsa Course here, coming at you with another Wit Heroes video. And today we're going to be looking at the tier list. So we're going to look at some of the best heroes in the game, and we're going to rank those down to the worst heroes in the game. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Alright, people, so we're going to start with going over some of the S tier heroes. These are the heroes that you should definitely be looking out for, and that's where we're going to focus most of this video on. So Zeus is going to be one of the main heroes that you should be focused on because he is so powerful. Now, Zeus has a great attack stat, he has a decent health pool, and his moveset is actually really good. A couple that I want to highlight are going to be his God of Olympus. This basically boosts his attack damage, which is always good, especially for a DPS hero. You want to make sure that they're pumping out as much damage as they can. Also, he puts a shock effect on people with his lightning bolt that deals damage, which is great. And his ultimate deals massive damage and it hits everyone. So Zeus, all in all, is a good hero simply because he is going to take your DPS to the next level. He's a hero you should definitely be looking at. Hero I would say is going to be Valkyrie. Valkyrie is also crazy good. She's more of a defender, while Zeus is more of an attacker. So you kind of have like the shield and sword thing going on here. Now, Valkyrie has a decent attack. She has a lot of health, and you can get that up fairly high. And her move set is what's really good. Her basic attacks are fine. She can hit all targets. She can heal or increase max health. But what's more important is she has the ability to taunt targets, which means that she is going to be the target of those blows, which is great. And on top of that, her ultimate, she gives different effects to different classes. So as you see here, like warriors, they get damage reduction, assassins get crit damage, rangers speed, mage gets an armor break, and supporters get immunity. So she's a very good tank support class, and she's really going to help your team in those hard fights with the utility and survivability that she's going to bring to your team. So definitely be looking out for Valkyrie and make sure to dump some resources into her because she's worth it. For those more difficult battles, those battles that usually take a bit longer, she's going to really up your DPS and she's going to help you burn through your enemies so much quicker. So she's going to make it so that you can grind and get those items faster so you can boost up your team. So definitely be looking out for Tsukuyami. She's a awesome legend. The next hero that I would say to look out for is going to be Alexander. Alexander is a very good hero for a couple of reasons. He plays more of that defensive role. He even gets a boost to defensive stats here, as you can see with the Fearless Warrior. He also has a leap ability that gets him right into the front line. And he also can put a bleed on people, which is good. That damage over time is always great just to add more DPS, especially when it's from your tanks. So no problems there. And his ultimate basically allows him to take damage for another ally. So all in all, he's a good defensive character. He's good to have in there, especially to fill out that front line, because right now we have some good people for back line, but you want to make sure that you also have some people that can take a blow. Poseidon is the next hero that I would say to look out for. Poseidon is very good because he offers some CC with this Wrath of the Sea God, which basically is going to freeze a target. And then also it synergizes very well with his flooding wave. This is going to deal extra damage to frozen targets. So his synergy is very well, actually. I like Poseidon because he's going to up your DPS overall. So he's a great person to have there in the back line, and that's going to make it so much easier for you to get through these battles quickly and farm the items that you need in order to level up and to move on in your campaign. Now, forgive me if I say this hero's name wrong. I think it's Zhuge Liang. He's also going to be a top tier hero for you to look out for. Zhuge Liang is a good hero because he's going to be another one of those damage dealers. As you see here, most of our top heroes have been damaged, and we had a few tanks here. This is another damage dealer. He's a mage. He does a lot of good damage, and he can also boost his attack. And on top of that, his ultimate is going to allow you to receive increased skill points. So all in all, this is going to be another one of those good heroes that is going to allow your team to burn down those enemies faster, which is going to allow you to level up faster and really compete at those higher levels, especially like in the portal. So that's going to do it for our S tier heroes. Let's go ahead and take a look at some heroes that may not be quite as good, but are still decent to look out for. So let's look at some heroes that I would consider to be A tier. So the first hero that I want to confirm in the A tier list is going to be the warrior Cthulhu. I really like this champion for a lot of reasons. He has a lot of utility. So Cthulhu, he deals good damage. He's able to boost his match HP. So the first hero I would like to go over in the A tier list is going to be Cthulhu. I like Cthulhu because he deals good damage. He can raise his match HP, and he also can heal himself with the Mad Tempest. And another thing is that he can increase damage resistance. So he's one of those champions that's going to be very tough, very hard to kill, and he also pumps out enough damage to where he is relevant on the field. He's not just going to be a punching bag, right? He can actually give it as well as he can take it. So Cthulhu is one of those heroes that if you can get fairly early on, go ahead and grab him. He'll be a good replacement for heroes like Thor. The next hero that I will put in the A tier list is going to be Michelle. This hero is very good. She's another utility type hero, but she acts as another tanky type champion. I really like her because she's going to be able to do a couple of things. She can basically heal targets and herself if they are low on health. She's also able to boost the attack of herself and her allies. And she's able to resurrect after she goes down. She can only do it once per battle, but that's very good for a tank because she comes back with a tad bit of health, and she's able to tank another couple of hits and give your backline time to finish that battle up. So Michelle is a great hero to have. I think that if you can find her early on, she's definitely going to help you build up to get those top tier champions. The next hero I would say to look out for is going to be Seth. Seth is a good champion simply because he has some good CC and he deals some pretty good damage. Now, if you look here, Seth is going to be able to petrify people, which basically means he can turn them into stone, and he also can absorb any buffs that the heroes may have, different buffs depending on who's on your actual squad. So Seth is a good hero, not just because he's a damage dealer, but because he also brings some utility to the combat. And you want to pick those heroes that aren't just attackers. They can actually have effects that can CC and kind of control the enemy team, so that it's easier for your team to actually go and win those fights, because it's not all about damage. Sometimes you have to think about how you can counter other teams, especially as you get to those higher levels. So one hero that I would like to point out for the assassin class is going to be Nuada. This character is very great at pumping out just raw damage. Now, a couple of things that I want to point out is that he can decrease the recovery of a target. So that means any type of healing regen, he's going to go ahead and counter that to some effect. He also gets increased crit, and he just deals a ton of damage with his ultimate and his basic attack. So this is a champion that you want to have on your team simply because he's going to raise your DPS. He's going to allow you to cut through some of those harder challenges, and you want to have a good assassin in your backline. I always recommend at least have one assassin in whatever comp you're running. The next hero that I want to look at for the A tier is going to be Robin Hood. This is going to be a ranger class. Robin Hood is very good because he deals a lot of damage, but on top of that, he can also increase his crit chance, and more importantly, he can silence the enemy. So this is very good because you want to get those backline enemies, or even frontline people, if they can't use some of their abilities. That's just less DPS that they can actually pump out. So Robin Hood is a very good champion to go ahead and pick up if you can, because he's not only going to bring big damage to your team, but he's also going to bring that utility that helps CC the enemy teams, which makes it easier for you to dominate. The next hero that I want to talk about is Ram. I call him that because I don't want to butcher his name. So this is an actual supporter, and I feel like I need to put a supporter on this list because I don't usually use supporters, but if I was going to use one, Ram is definitely in that top 3 of supporters, I think, right now. He does a couple of things here. Ram is going to be able to become invincible, which I think is awesome because if people are targeting him, they're just doing no damage to him at all, no matter what move it is. So that's always nice to have because you want a healer in the background that is going to be able to stay alive. So this is a very good one for that. Another thing is that he can instantly heal a target for 15%, which is great. He chooses the target who is the lowest on health right now, so usually it's going to be your tanks that are getting bumped up again, which is always good. And he deals pretty good damage. So if you're going to have a support on your team, I would say that this is one of the better supports to have. Right now, I'm at a place where I usually go raw damage in my backline, but Ram is a good support class if you are looking for that. The last A tier hero that I'm going to talk about is going to be Medusa. There's probably a few more that can be put in this category, but I want to start getting to some heroes that you should probably avoid or that are a little bit lower on the tier list. Now, Medusa is very good for a couple of reasons. Medusa, she's able to petrify targets, which means that they can't actually participate in the battle, which is always good. Like I've been preaching, CC is great. She also is able to lower the defense of the enemy. So that means that they're going to be taking more damage, which is always great. Medusa can also increase her attack. So she's a fairly hard hitter, but more importantly, she's able to support the team by keeping enemies out of the fight. So let's go ahead and take a look at some heroes that are a little bit lower on the tier list and that you may want to think about avoiding, or maybe just not putting too many resources into. So the first hero that I would go into, probably not spending too many resources in, is going to be Rapunzel. I would put her in that lower tier. Like if there was a C or maybe a B minus, C plus tier, that would be Rapunzel. She's not a bad hero. She's able to like get rid of debuffs. She's able to resist some crit and stuff like that. But overall, if you're looking for a support, she's probably not the best one. So that's why I rank her low. Early on in the game, you get Rapunzel, or you have the chance to get Rapunzel, and you may want to use her for a bit, but I stopped using her fairly early in my playthrough. The next hero that I'm going to talk about is going to be Napoleon. Napoleon fills that assassin's role, and at low levels, he may not be a bad hero to go with, but there's definitely many assassins that just do a better job at filling his role. He does increase crit, he does have a stun, but all in all, Napoleon, his damage output just isn't really there, and the utility that he brings to the team isn't really there. So while if he's the only assassin that you have, or you just want to mix up your team, swap it up a little bit, yeah, maybe throw Napoleon in there, but he's definitely not going to be a top tier hero that you take into like those big in-game type fights. So just to keep in mind, there are definitely assassins out there that do it much better than Napoleon. So the next hero is going to be Gollum. Now, Gollum for early game isn't bad at all, but he's not one of those tanks that you're probably going to take into like later levels, because there are just so many tanks that do it better than him. He can raise his defense. He does have a petrify, but like I say, if you can find like a Medusa or just about a lot of other tanks, really, they're just going to do a better job at him. He puts out decent damage, but definitely isn't great. Like if you could find Cthulhu, that would definitely replace Gollum anytime, just because Cthulhu, while he doesn't have the paralyze, his damage output is so much better and his survivability is so much better. So I mean, Gollum isn't terrible early game, but as soon as you can get rid of him, you should probably go ahead and put him on the bench. Bigfoot is another one of those heroes that kind of falls into the same category as the Gollum. He does shine a little bit in the early game, but later game, you're definitely going to get rid of him. If you've been playing this game for even a couple of days, you've probably run into a few Bigfoots, and you know that they're not much of a threat. They can take a little bit of a hit. They do have a freeze effect that can get you a little bit, but all in all, they're not they're not very frightening when you go against them. They're pretty easy to take down. So as soon as you can find a better tank, I would say go ahead and get rid of Bigfoot. He's definitely on that lower tier of tanks. So the next one I'm going to go over, it's going to be Queen Sheba. She's going to fill that ranger role, so she is a DPS, but I feel like she's one of the weaker DPS. She can increase her crit slightly. There's some rangers that get a much better boost than she does, and she can also restrain targets, which basically lowers their dodge ability or their dodge chance. So not as great. If you're looking for a ranger, I feel like even Billy the Kid is probably better than Queen Sheba. So I would probably not put too many resources into her because you're going to be wasting them. She's not really a top tier hero. I will put her very far down on the bottom. So if you do get lucky and you find her, maybe put her to the side. So the next hero I want to go over is Marionette, and she fills this DPS role. The reason that I put her in this lower tier is because both her ultimate and another one of her abilities, the one that's called Play With Me, they both have the effect to restrain targets, which basically reduces their dodge chance. That's not really what you want. It can come in handy in certain situations, but you want a DPS that's really going to be pumping out hard DPS, and Marionette fails to do that, or at least not as well as some other DPS can do. So make sure that you're paying attention to your DPS, because they're going to be the people that really help you burn through those fights and get you those key items so that you can upgrade your champions. The last hero that I'm going to talk about here is going to be Pocahontas. She is a support class, so she's supposed to be like your healer slash defense type class. The reason I put her so low on this list is because her abilities don't really help you all that much. She does have a shield that absorbs, I think, 20% damage, and she also can give you the plus skill points. But overall, just her damage output, the fact that she boosts speed, these are things that aren't really gonna help you that much. You want a support that can also deal a fair amount of damage, which Pocahontas really isn't up there, and that shield doesn't really help your team in the long run. So all in all, I would say to pass on her if you can find a better support, or to replace her with another DPS character. People, I think I'm gonna go ahead and end it there. That's pretty much a pretty good look at a ton of the heroes there. So if this helps you out at all, make sure to drop a like, subscribe today to become a member of the Ors Force. And if you want me to go over some of those more mid-tier heroes, because I completely skipped over those heroes that kind of fall in between the really bad and the really good. I went over S tier, A tier, and then those heroes that are on the lower end. But if you want me to go over those mid-tier heroes, let me know down in the comment section. I'll talk about each of those or most of those and why I think that they're mid-tier and that they're decent heroes to go after. If you enjoyed this video, I appreciate it, people. We'll see you in the next one. Peace, 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 peace.